Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles the Man. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, and entertainment. And we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. So today we're going to be talking about that damn Stephen A. Smith. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. Be sure to follow me on Instagram. My handle is CTABANZ. So yesterday, President Trump shocked the entire world, right? With the comments that he made after the tragic passing of Rob Reiner and his wife. He wrote this on his social media page. He said, "A very sad thing just happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, tortured and struggling, but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace." Well, this particular post was viewed 25 million times, just as one post that I'm looking at here. But everyone in the political world and outside the political world reacted to it, and people went off. Even a lot of the people that voted for Donald Trump, they were scolding him for the comments that he made. And then the president took it a step further and then doubled down when asked about it when he was speaking in the White House. So you had that entire debacle there. So yesterday, I was just going through the internet and I came across a video of Stephen A. Smith from his show, The Straight Shooter, reacting to the comments that the president made. And the title of his show is "My Thoughts on the Death of Rob and Michelle Reiner, Donald Trump's Response on Social Media." And this video has about 100,000 views. So I was very curious to hear what Stephen A. Smith was going to say about this, because Stephen A. Smith has been making a lot of headlines recently. The comments that really had him going viral was him basically doubling down on his ridiculous comments on Senator Mark Kelly, who essentially told service members it's within your right to disobey unlawful orders. And Stephen A. Smith went on The View and for whatever reason decided that, you know what, although these comments are idiotic, although they make no sense, although a lot of the majority of people that served and are currently serving say you're absolutely wrong, he still decided to double down on it. So for those of you who don't remember his comments on The View, we want to play them quickly for you now, and I'm going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to Smith here.
And you had some really sharp criticisms of Democrats in the election for having sort of lost touch with the issues the voters cared about.
Yep.
How are you feeling now, a year into Trump, and what do you make of this discussion around affordability and him saying it seems like it's a scam from Democrats?
Well, that's rhetoric on his part. There's nothing surprising or unpredictable about that. You could see that coming from a mile away, because he has to say that right now because it's an issue and a concern for the American people. And he wants to act as if there is no concern because everything he's doing is just so beautiful and so marvelous and what have you. But in the end, the Democrats give the credit where credit is due at this particular moment in time. I think that they've learned from some of their mistakes anyway. When you see what happened in New York with Mamdani, when you see what happens in New Jersey with Cheryl as the governor, when you see what happens with Spanberger in Virginia, clearly there's something that's going on within the Democratic establishment that's saying, let's focus on real issues that are pertinent to the American people. Let's make sure we articulate ourselves appropriately so we don't lose sight of what the message should be. Leading up to the election, they did just that, and I thought they handed him the election as opposed to him actually winning it. Now they're forcing him to play ball and figure out a way to beat them because they're coming and they're gaining some momentum. We'll see what happens.
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, "I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that." That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Okay. Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
Well, you could call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine.
Okay.
Here's the reality of the situation. First of all, I don't give a damn what Pete Hegseth has to say, because I will tell you right now, he was never qualified for the job. When you talk about DEI and eradicating that, excuse me, what was he doing hosting Fox News on the weekend and all of a sudden he's the defense secretary?
Right.
Please, give me a break. I don't care what he has to say. Let me get that out the way. As it pertains to Mark Kelly, what I was talking about is military. What I did was get on the phone with family and friends who have served in the military. And I said, we're not civilians. This is not the court of law. You can be implicated for implying something if you are a former military member or you are a present military member. It wasn't what Mark Kelly said. It's the fact that he was a combat Navy pilot who served in the military, who would tell folks, ignore an order when it could get
Ignore
them
an
in
illegal.
the world.
He did not say
I said
ignore.
illegal.
Not what
I said illegal. I'm talking about illegal. I understand that.
He said you don't have to follow an unlawful order, and that is in the military code of conduct.
And I'm saying to you, hold on, which I'm aware of.
But it didn't sound like you were aware of that.
Well, no. I disagree with you.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
I had two governors, by the way, text me to tell me I was wrong, and they agree with you.
You are wrong.
And I had two senators that reached out to me and said, you weren't wrong at all.
Well, Mikey Sherrill did say that the reason they felt the need to put that out is they were constantly being approached by people in the military saying, we're being put in really uncomfortable situations.
But
that to me is a little more relatable when you're a veteran yourself.
But I'm saying let me say this real quick.
You gotta do it real quick. Or wait till we come back.
All I'm saying is this. If you're a member of the military, I'm looking at the soldiers as saying, don't get yourself in trouble. Let somebody else do it. Don't you do it because it ain't gonna work for you.
Excellent. So you heard what Smith had to say there. So after hearing him kind of go down this path, and I think Stephen A. Smith is part of MAGA, I could be wrong, but that's what it seems like. Certainly that's his audience. I thought that he was going to take a similar tone and defend the president. But to my surprise and to the shock of his own viewers, he actually started going after the president and scolding him for the comments that he made. So for those of you who didn't hear what Stephen A. Smith had to say, I want to play his comments for you now on the Straight Shooter Show, and I'm going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to Stephen A. Smith here.
Now, one has nothing to do with the other, and we get that, but violence is violence. And when Charlie Kirk got assassinated, people like myself and various others were like, yo, he got killed. Don't come to us with the rhetoric that you believe he was spewing online and when he was going to college campuses. And all of that's up for debate in terms of what he said, how offensive it was, and to whom, and all of that other stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about prioritizing a core level of decency where somebody gets killed, somebody gets murdered. That ain't the time to be sticking out your chest and basically indicating that they brought it on themselves because of whatever, when there should never be any place for violence. And you would think that our commander-in-chief, the president of the United States of America, would know this better than anybody. But evidently this man does not. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, which pisses me off. Because guess what? I want a healthy debate about Trump in terms of, are the tariffs working? Did he do the right thing with the border? How's the economy? Is inflation really ravaging us? Are these commitments that he's gotten, these pledges of trillions of dollars that are supposed to be coming into the United States of America, is that real? And is that going to trim our deficit down from $38.4 trillion to whatever number you hope to get it down to? What about the Affordable Care Act and the subsidies that were implemented, particularly since COVID? How's that going to be addressed? What about that shutdown that took place? What about 42 million people on SNAP? And some of them still don't have their SNAP programs in place for them. How about the fact that a resolution wasn't reached in terms of the Affordable Care Act subsidies and whether or not they're going to be extended for a year or 3 years or not at all? How are the American people going to survive off of the high elevated level of prices that are going to come courtesy of the premiums? That's what I would like to be discussing. That's what I would like to be debating. So when the president talks about how great he is and all these things that he has done, I'd like to focus on that. And where he's right, I'd like to give him credit for it. And where he's wrong, I'd like to say he's wrong based on the facts. But it's stuff like this where all of that gets shoved aside because the classlessness, the juvenile tendencies, the lack of statesmanship, the trifling ass tendencies that he exercises and puts on display time and time again, knows no limits. Knows no limits. Rob Reiner and his wife just got murdered. Less than 24 hours at the time of this taping. Their son has been arrested for murdering them. You're hearing gross details about how they were murdered. And all you hear about is stab wounds, but if you really, really look into it, it was far more malicious than even that. And the president is blaming Trump derangement syndrome. In other words, they were so nasty towards him, that's why it happened. This is the kind of stuff that's going to get GOP folks out of office. And why am I bringing that up? Because guess what? Even though you speak out against them in terms of how inappropriate his verbiage is and how disgusting and vile it is and inexcusable, for anybody, but especially a man in his position, the other side to it is that you're going to speak up in arms in defense of him and march lockstep with him under most circumstances, going along with what he says, going along with how he wants you to vote, but most importantly, a lot of times shoving aside the rhetoric because you're saying that's just Trump being Trump. And then you're going to wonder why your ass is going to get booted out of office. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about here.
Excellent. So you heard what he had to say. Now, before I delve into my thoughts on what this gentleman said here, I want to read what his viewers said. Because some people were going after him. Let me just see. Some people finally, one guy said, he said Stephen A. Smith is now going woke, unsubscribed. Another guy said, one person said, I totally agree with you. Then a few other of his viewers, I don't know if they deleted the comments, but a few of them were actually going off on Stephen A. Smith, and his audience members were not happy with him. I don't know why I can't find the comments anymore, but people were absolutely calling him out. And a lot of his viewers were not happy with him. And they were basically saying, he's gone woke and this and that and this and that. It was pretty bad. But then what ended up happening was that he was getting a groundswell of support from, I guess, new viewers, right? And a lot of the tone that Stephen A. Smith took in this sound, I've always believed that this is who he has always been, right? I believe that this is who he has always been all this time. So I think to me and many people, a lot of us were confused as to why all of a sudden he was taking these strong conservative points. What are my thoughts on this? First of all, Stephen A. Smith got it right. Had you said anything other than what he said, you would have been flamed up. Why? Because even the president's own base was calling him out. And one of the things that they were saying, amongst many, but one of the things that we're saying was, we're not like the left. The left were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, and we are better than that. That's what a lot of them were saying. So a lot of them felt like the president's comments were making them as a movement look bad, because it was like, now you're making it seem like we're no different than those that were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. But the part that I think that his base seems to be absolutely confused about was, Trump already said that this is how he said it in the memorial service of or the memorial, the burial of Charlie Kirk. He said that because his wife had gone up there and said she forgave the killers, the person that took her husband's life, which is a very powerful thing to say in a moment like that, because usually in a moment like that you want to seek revenge. But she took the higher road, and a lot of people applauded her for that. But that's not what the president said. He said that she's a much better person than me because I hate my enemies. That's Trump. I hate my enemies. So when Rob Reiner passed away, he viewed him as an enemy. And it's like, so what? He passed away. He's my enemy. And he then tried to make it seem like the son that did it was because it was almost like it was a politically motivated a thing that the son did, allegedly, right? So Stephen A. Smith pushing back on him, I mean, it's like, bro, there are a lot of things to push back on. Right now, do I think that this is something that's going to fracture his coalition? No, but I think there are other things out there that are going to affect it. Cost of living, cost of groceries, inflation. These things are already bad enough. The jobs report came out recently. They refused to release the October report. They just released the December report. I think November report, they added about 100,000 jobs. October, I think they lost 60,000. So it was a net gain over the last 2 months of 40,000 new jobs. That alone is enough bad news. And you can see it in the approval ratings and all of that. So I think Stephen A. Smith did the smart thing, because had he said anything other than that, it would have been a bad look. It would have been a bad look. And there's no one on the right defending these comments. And I think that it's important that we say this. I said this in the other show, but I want to say it now. Some people said, but what about those that celebrated the passing of Charlie Kirk? And I wasn't one of them. And I believe that the people that were celebrating Charlie Kirk's demise are animals. I believe that. I believe you're an animal if you celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate. Why would you celebrate that, right? It was a grotesque killing. Something, and I didn't want to watch the video until, unfortunately, someone was talking about it. I ended up seeing it, and I was just so disappointed in myself that I saw it, because it was just so brutal, right? It was so brutal. But so were these comments. Right? So if you're making excuses for the Charlie Kirk's passing or making fun, then you're an animal. But if you're also defending these comments, you're an animal as well. And thank God Stephen A. Smith got it right, because had he said something else, it would not have been good for him on his channel. These are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments, and we catch you guys on the next show. I'm out. Peace.